Here are 9 reasons people might secretly dislike you and what to do about it. When we engage in conversations, one of the simplest but most powerful ways to connect with others is by listening. However, some people tend to dominate discussions, turning every interaction into a monologue rather than a dialogue. This habit can lead others to feel ignored or undervalued, and over time it may even cause resentment. Talking more than you listen may not be a conscious choice. It could stem from nervousness, enthusiasm, or a natural tendency to share. But regardless of the reason, it often impacts the way people perceive you and may prevent deeper, more meaningful connections from forming. A conversation in which one person monopolizes the talking can feel unbalanced and, at times, frustrating. When someone talks without giving others a chance to share, it sends the message, intentionally or not, that their views or experiences are more important. This imbalance can make the other person feel dismissed, leading to a sense of isolation even when they are physically present. The result is that instead of a reciprocal exchange where both people feel involved, the conversation becomes one-sided and impersonal. The impact of not listening goes beyond just social discomfort. It affects the quality of relationships over time. Listening allows us to understand others' emotions, thoughts, and experiences. Without it, misunderstandings are more likely to occur, and empathy is harder to cultivate. In relationships, whether personal or professional, the lack of empathy can lead to conflict or simply a loss of connection. People are more likely to feel valued and respected when they sense that someone is genuinely interested in their perspective. But if they notice that the other person is merely waiting for their turn to speak, or worse, constantly interrupting, they may begin to distance themselves emotionally. Psychologically, listening fulfills an important need for validation. We all have a desire to be seen and heard, and conversation is one of the main ways we experience this recognition. When someone listens actively, they offer a form of validation that strengthens the bond between people. Without this validation, people may feel overlooked, as if their presence doesn't truly matter. Over time, this can erode trust and closeness, as one-sided conversations create an impression of self-centeredness. Being a good listener, in contrast, builds rapport and trust, making others more inclined to seek your company and share their lives with you. Another challenge is that constant talking can sometimes indicate an unconscious need to control the interaction. For some, talking more feels safer because it allows them to steer the conversation or keep it within familiar territory. This tendency, however, prevents a natural flow where both parties contribute equally. When one person monopolizes the conversation, they miss out on learning something new from the other person's perspective. Additionally, those who feel silenced or disregarded may eventually give up on sharing at all. This can lead to a dynamic where one person feels overburdened with responsibility to sustain the conversation, while the other becomes increasingly disengaged. Improving conversational balance requires mindfulness and a willingness to shift focus outward. By practicing active listening, making eye contact, asking open-ended questions, and giving verbal cues like "I see" or "that's interesting," you communicate that you value the other person's thoughts. Pausing after the other person speaks, rather than immediately jumping in, also provides a space where they can continue if they have more to share. This kind of mindful listening shows that you're present in the moment and engaged in what they're saying, which can make a conversation feel much more satisfying for both people involved. Additionally, checking in with yourself and reflecting on your conversations can be revealing. If you notice that you're speaking more than you're listening, try to understand what's motivating that pattern. Sometimes, adjusting expectations or cultivating curiosity can make a huge difference. Instead of viewing each conversation as a chance to share, try to see it as a chance to discover something new about the person you're speaking with. This approach not only helps balance the interaction but also enriches your understanding of the people around you. Ultimately, talking less and listening more is a habit that takes practice but pays off in the form of stronger relationships and deeper connections. People appreciate feeling heard, and as you give them more space to speak, you might find that they, in turn, are more willing to listen to you. Being perceived as judgmental creates significant barriers in relationships, both personal and professional. When others see someone as quick to judge, It can cause them to feel guarded, defensive, or even alienated. This tendency to jump to conclusions or to make critical observations without understanding the full picture can erode trust and weaken the connection with others. Although judgment is a natural part of human behavior, as it helps us make sense of the world, allowing it to dominate interactions can lead to miscommunication and may even make people feel inadequate or unworthy. One of the primary reasons people are perceived as judgmental is the assumption that they have already figured out others based on surface impressions or limited information. This type of snap judgment often fails to take into account the complexity of people's lives and motivations. For example, if someone arrives late to a meeting, it's easy to assume they're irresponsible or careless. However, there may be factors at play that are unseen. Perhaps they were delayed due to an emergency or unforeseen obstacle. When we judge too quickly, we often overlook these nuances, reducing people to single actions or characteristics rather than appreciating the broader context of their behavior. Another issue with appearing judgmental is that it can create a one-way relationship dynamic where one person feels superior or right compared to others. This can make people feel as though they are being constantly evaluated, leading to a reluctance to open up or share. If people feel that they're only being seen for their mistakes or shortcomings, they are less likely to feel comfortable expressing themselves honestly. This atmosphere of judgment not only hinders connection but can also prevent others from feeling safe to grow or make mistakes. Over time, this behavior creates emotional distance, as people may start avoiding someone who seems to regularly critique or evaluate their choices. Furthermore, being judgmental can reveal more about the judge than the person being judged. Often people's judgments are a reflection of their own insecurities, biases, or experiences. For example, if someone feels uncomfortable with a particular lifestyle choice, they may be more inclined to criticize it in others. By projecting their own discomfort onto others, judgmental individuals inadvertently reveal their own fears or unresolved issues. This, in turn, can push people away, as others sense that the judgment stems not from genuine concern or constructive feedback, but from a place of personal discomfort or prejudice. Reducing judgmental tendencies involves cultivating empathy and openness, which can create a more welcoming and supportive environment. One way to practice empathy is to start asking questions rather than making assumptions. For instance, instead of quickly labeling someone as lazy for not meeting expectations, it's often more productive to inquire about what might be holding them back. Is there a personal issue they're struggling with, or are they dealing with stress that's impacting their performance? Approaching people with curiosity rather than judgment helps foster an atmosphere of understanding and respect. This approach not only strengthens relationships, but also encourages others to share their experiences more openly, knowing they won't be immediately criticized or labeled. Another important step in overcoming judgmental habits is self-reflection. Taking time to assess one's own thought patterns can help reveal any biases or assumptions that might be influencing behavior. By becoming more aware of these automatic judgments, it becomes easier to pause before reacting and to approach situations with a fresh perspective. This shift in mindset allows people to engage more deeply with others, focusing on building connection rather than assigning value judgments. Practicing non-judgment does not mean ignoring problematic behavior or lowering one's standards. Rather, it means allowing space for understanding before passing final verdicts. People are often doing the best they can within their circumstances, and recognizing this can help reduce the impulse to criticize. By choosing to be more patient and allowing people the benefit of the doubt, relationships become more supportive and less prone to conflict. Ultimately, reducing judgment in interactions requires a shift in focus from evaluating others to understanding them. When people feel accepted and understood, they are more likely to reciprocate with trust, respect, and openness. By replacing judgment with curiosity and compassion, interactions become richer, and the relationships that emerge from these exchanges tend to be more resilient and fulfilling. Cultivating this habit not only benefits those around us, but also enhances our own well-being by promoting a more positive and open-minded approach to the world. When someone rarely apologizes or admits their faults, it can significantly damage relationships and create an atmosphere of tension and mistrust. Apologizing and acknowledging our mistakes are not just social niceties, they are essential components of maintaining healthy, respectful relationships. When people fail to apologize or admit when they're wrong, others may feel disrespected, unheard, or unimportant. This behavior often stems from various emotional factors, such as pride, fear of vulnerability, or a desire to avoid confrontation. However, failing to own up to mistakes can have long-lasting consequences on personal and professional connections. One of the most damaging aspects of refusing to apologize is the perception that you are unwilling to take responsibility for your actions. This can create a sense of imbalance in relationships. If someone feels that they are constantly bearing the weight of disagreements, mistakes, or misunderstandings while the other person never admits fault, it can lead to feelings of frustration and resentment. Over time, this dynamic can erode the trust and mutual respect that healthy relationships are built on. People expect accountability in their interactions, and when they don't receive it, they may begin to feel as though the relationship is one-sided. The inability or unwillingness to apologize often stems from pride. Some people believe that admitting fault makes them appear weak or inferior, so they resist acknowledging their mistakes. They may fear that apologizing will make them seem less competent, powerful, or capable. However, the truth is that owning up to mistakes can actually demonstrate strength and maturity. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong, and it shows that you are self-aware enough to recognize how your actions affect others. Far from weakening your position, apologizing can actually strengthen relationships by demonstrating humility and a willingness to learn and grow. Another common reason people avoid apologizing is the fear of conflict. Apologizing often requires vulnerability and the acceptance of responsibility for something that may have hurt or upset someone else. This can lead to discomfort or anxiety, especially for those who avoid confrontation. However, avoiding apologies in an effort to sidestep difficult conversations only prolongs the tension and unresolved feelings. The longer a conflict lingers without resolution, the more difficult it becomes to repair the damage done. Rather than avoiding confrontation, acknowledging your fault can help to diffuse tension and open the door to meaningful dialogue and understanding. It allows both parties to express their feelings, resolve the issue at hand, and move forward with a stronger connection. When you fail to apologize, it also sends a message that the other person's feelings or concerns are not important to you. This can lead to a breakdown in communication, as the other person may feel dismissed or invalidated. In relationships, whether personal or professional, validation is key. Apologizing, when appropriate, shows that you value the other person's experience and that you care enough to acknowledge when you've hurt them. It fosters empathy and mutual respect, reinforcing the foundation of any healthy relationship. Not apologizing can also lead to a pattern of defensive behavior. People who refuse to admit fault may be constantly on the defensive, justifying their actions or shifting the blame onto others. This creates a toxic cycle where no one takes responsibility and the issue at hand remains unresolved. Over time, this defensiveness can make others feel unheard or frustrated, as their concerns are dismissed or minimized. Rather than getting defensive, it is more productive to approach disagreements with an open mind and a willingness to listen. By owning up to mistakes, you create an opportunity for growth and repair, rather than perpetuating the cycle of blame. In contrast, admitting faults and offering a sincere apology is a powerful way to heal and strengthen relationships. An effective apology is one that is specific, acknowledging the impact of your actions and expressing regret for any hurt caused. It also includes a commitment to change, showing that you are actively working to improve your behavior moving forward. This kind of accountability fosters trust and allows for deeper connections to form, as it demonstrates that you are emotionally mature and responsible. Learning to apologize and admit faults is a skill that requires self-awareness and emotional intelligence. It's important to recognize that no one is perfect, and making mistakes is part of being human. What truly matters is how we respond to those mistakes. By apologizing when necessary and taking responsibility for our actions, we show that we value the relationships we have and are committed to maintaining their integrity. This openness helps prevent resentment from building up and encourages growth, both individually and within the context of our relationships. In the end, the ability to apologize is a sign of strength, not weakness, and it plays a crucial role in fostering meaningful, lasting connections. Taking things too personally can significantly affect how you perceive others and how they perceive you. It is a common habit that can lead to unnecessary emotional turmoil, misunderstandings, and strained relationships. When we take things personally, we interpret other people's actions, words, or behavior as an attack on our character, values, or abilities, even if that wasn't the intent. This tendency often stems from insecurities, past experiences, or an overly sensitive nature, and it can prevent us from engaging in healthy, objective communication. One of the main consequences of taking things too personally is the emotional distress it causes. When someone makes a comment or acts in a way that you interpret as criticism, it can feel like a direct attack on your self-worth. This can lead to feelings of hurt, anger, or even anxiety, often disproportionate to the situation. Over time, these emotional reactions can create a cycle of negativity, where every interaction is filtered through a lens of personal offense, even when no offense was intended. As a result, what could have been a simple conversation or minor disagreement turns into a major emotional hurdle that leaves you feeling drained and upset. Taking things personally can also prevent you from seeing situations objectively. When you're too focused on your own emotional reaction, it's difficult to step back and analyze the situation rationally. For instance, if a colleague offers constructive criticism, instead of viewing it as an opportunity to improve, you might interpret it as a judgment of your abilities or character. This response not only distorts the actual intent behind the feedback, but also prevents you from growing or learning from the experience. By reacting emotionally rather than objectively, you miss the chance to gain insight or feedback that could benefit you. Moreover, constantly taking things personally can create unnecessary conflicts and misunderstandings. When you perceive every comment or action as a personal slight, you may respond defensively, shutting down communication and making it difficult for others to engage with you. Others might feel like they are walking on eggshells, uncertain of how their words or actions will be received, which can make interactions tense and strained. This heightened sensitivity can create an environment where people feel reluctant to offer honest opinions or feedback for fear of triggering an emotional response. As a result, meaningful dialogue becomes more difficult, and relationships can become less authentic and more strained. In social and professional settings, taking things too personally can also limit your ability to collaborate and build trust. When you interpret feedback or even neutral remarks through the lens of personal offense, it becomes harder to foster a cooperative spirit. Team members or friends may find it difficult to work with someone who is quick to take offense, as it creates a tense atmosphere that stifles creativity and open communication. Instead of embracing differing viewpoints or constructive criticism, you may close yourself off, which can hinder personal growth and hinder teamwork. Part of the reason we take things personally can be traced to our own insecurities or fears of being judged. If we are uncertain about our abilities or our place in a relationship, we are more likely to internalize negative comments or behavior as a reflection of our worth. This tendency is particularly prevalent in individuals with low self-esteem, who may feel that any form of criticism is a direct attack on their identity. These underlying insecurities can make it difficult to view situations with the necessary perspective and objectivity. And to overcome the habit of taking things too personally, it is important to develop greater self-awareness and emotional resilience. One of the first steps is recognizing when you are interpreting something as a personal attack and pausing to assess whether that interpretation is accurate. Often, the comments or actions that upset us say more about the other person's mood, circumstances, or intentions than they do about us. Understanding this can help you detach emotionally and avoid jumping to conclusions. Another helpful practice is learning to separate your emotions from the situation at hand. Instead of immediately reacting with hurt or defensiveness, take a moment to reflect on the facts of the situation. What is actually being said or done, and what might the other person be trying to communicate. This approach allows you to respond more thoughtfully, without the knee-jerk emotional reactions that can cloud your judgment. Additionally, it is important to remind yourself that criticism or differing opinions do not define you as a person. They are simply feedback or expressions of another person's perspective, and they don't necessarily reflect your value or character. Lastly, it's helpful to build greater self-confidence and emotional resilience over time. When you are secure in your sense of self and trust in your abilities, you are less likely to take things personally. Practicing self-compassion and reminding yourself of your strengths can also help you remain grounded in situations where you might otherwise feel offended. By learning to accept feedback as a tool for growth and by developing a stronger sense of emotional balance, you can reduce the tendency to take things personally and improve your interactions with others. In summary, taking things too personally can have a negative impact on both your emotional well-being and your relationships. By recognizing when you are doing it and making an effort to step back and assess situations objectively, you can reduce the emotional toll of misinterpretations and avoid unnecessary conflict. Developing emotional resilience, self-awareness, and a more balanced perspective on criticism and feedback is key to breaking the cycle of personal offense and creating healthier, more positive connections with others. Constantly seeking validation can have a profound impact on your emotional well-being and relationships. While it's natural to want approval from others, relying too heavily on external validation for your sense of self-worth can be detrimental. It creates an unhealthy cycle where your emotions and self-esteem are entirely contingent on how others perceive you. This need for validation often stems from insecurities or a lack of self-confidence, but over time it can lead to feelings of anxiety, dependency, and frustration. When you constantly seek validation, you may find yourself looking to others for reassurance before making decisions, expressing opinions, or taking actions. Instead of trusting your own judgment or abilities, you might wait for others to approve or confirm your choices. This behavior can undermine your sense of autonomy and self-trust, leaving you feeling lost or uncertain without external feedback. It also makes it difficult to feel confident in your own decisions, as you are conditioned to depend on others for a sense of direction. Over time, this can lead to a lack of self-reliance and an inability to act independently or confidently. Furthermore, seeking validation too often can create an emotional roller coaster. When others praise you or show approval, it can provide a temporary sense of fulfillment and boost your confidence. However, when validation is withheld or when you receive criticism, your self-esteem may plummet. Your emotional state becomes fragile and unpredictable, as it is tied to the opinions of those around you. This dependence on others for validation can lead to constant anxiety, as you anticipate whether you will receive affirmation or rejection. Instead of being able to appreciate your own worth, your emotions shift based on the fluctuating opinions of others. This pattern of seeking validation also leads to a lack of authenticity. When your self-worth is based on how others view you, you might begin to tailor your actions, words, and behavior to please or impress them, rather than staying true to yourself. This often leads to a disconnection between who you truly are and how you present yourself to the world. You may feel like you have to be someone you're not in order to gain approval, which can result in feelings of inner conflict or dissatisfaction. Over time, this inauthenticity can cause emotional strain as the pressure to maintain a certain image becomes exhausting and unsustainable. Additionally, seeking validation can create strain in relationships. People who are constantly looking for approval can be overwhelming to be around, as others may feel pressured to always reassure them or offer praise. This dynamic can be draining for both parties and may lead to resentment or frustration. People who seek constant validation may also find themselves disappointed when the praise or affirmation they expect doesn't come. This can create tension and distance in relationships, as the constant need for validation places undue stress on others to meet those emotional demands. The more someone seeks validation, the more likely they are to overlook or ignore the positive qualities and support they already receive, always searching for more. It's also important to recognize that seeking validation often reflects an underlying fear of rejection or failure. People who rely heavily on external approval may feel that their worth is tied to their success, achievements, or the approval of others. This fear of not measuring up can lead to perfectionism and avoidance of risks or challenges, as failure or criticism might threaten their fragile sense of self-worth. As a result, the constant pursuit of validation can hold you back from taking risks, growing, or stepping outside your comfort zone. Breaking the cycle of seeking validation requires a shift in mindset and a commitment to building inner confidence. One of the most important steps is to begin cultivating self-acceptance. Rather than waiting for others to affirm your worth, focus on acknowledging your strengths and successes. Learn to trust your own judgment and decisions, recognizing that your value is not contingent on the approval of others. Practicing self-compassion can also help you build resilience to criticism and setbacks. By treating yourself with kindness and understanding, you create a stable foundation for your self-worth that is not dependent on external feedback. Another important step is to shift the focus from seeking validation to seeking personal growth. When you focus on improving yourself for your own satisfaction, rather than for the approval of others, you create a sense of purpose and fulfillment that comes from within, pursuing your own goals, values, and passions rather than striving for external praise leads to a more authentic and fulfilling life. When you begin to validate yourself, you no longer need constant affirmation from others to feel secure or worthy. Lastly, it can be helpful to surround yourself with people who support and encourage your growth, rather than people who perpetuate the cycle of seeking validation. Healthy relationships are based on mutual respect and understanding, where both individuals feel comfortable being their authentic selves without feeling the need to constantly prove their worth. By focusing on building these types of relationships, you can create a support system that empowers you to be yourself without seeking constant validation. In conclusion, constantly seeking validation can lead to emotional instability, dependency, and a loss of authenticity. It is essential to develop a strong sense of self-worth that is independent of others' opinions. By learning to trust yourself, practicing self-compassion, and focusing on personal growth, you can break the cycle of seeking validation and build a more confident, fulfilled, and authentic life. Struggling with being reliable can have a significant impact on both personal and professional relationships. Reliability is an essential trait that people look for in others, as it reflects trustworthiness, consistency, and responsibility. When you have difficulty being reliable, whether it's in following through on commitments, meeting deadlines, or keeping promises, it can lead to disappointment, frustration, and a loss of trust. It may not always be intentional, but this struggle can stem from various factors such as poor time management, lack of prioritization, or even deeper issues related to self-discipline or fear of failure. Regardless of the cause, being unreliable can create a ripple effect, straining your relationships and limiting opportunities for growth. One of the main reasons people struggle with being reliable is a lack of proper time management and organization. When you are disorganized or don't have a clear system for managing tasks, it becomes easy to forget important commitments or misjudge how long it will take to complete something. This can result in missed deadlines, unfulfilled promises, or incomplete tasks, which can lead to frustration for both you and those relying on you. Without a clear structure in place, it becomes difficult to follow through on responsibilities, and this inconsistency can undermine your reputation and cause others to lose faith in your ability to deliver. Another factor contributing to unreliability is poor prioritization. It's easy to become overwhelmed when there are multiple tasks or commitments on your plate, and without a clear sense of which ones are most important, you may end up neglecting your responsibilities. Sometimes the desire to avoid discomfort or difficult tasks can lead to procrastination, further exacerbating the problem. When you focus on the less important or more immediately gratifying tasks instead of those that require more effort or attention, you risk letting down the people who depend on you. This lack of prioritization can lead to a pattern of unreliability, where you consistently fail to meet expectations. Fear of failure or a lack of self-confidence can also play a role in struggling with reliability. When you doubt your abilities or fear making mistakes, you may hesitate to commit to tasks or obligations. This fear can result in procrastination or avoidance, as you worry about not being able to deliver or perform to the level others expect. Additionally, the fear of letting people down can create a vicious cycle where you avoid commitments altogether in order to prevent potential failure, which ironically leads to being unreliable. The anxiety surrounding potential failure can create a barrier to taking responsibility and following through, even when you genuinely want to be dependable. Another reason for unreliability is simply not taking commitments seriously enough. If you struggle with a lack of motivation or don't see the value in following through on certain tasks, it becomes easy to put them off or ignore them entirely. This can occur in both personal and professional settings, where you may fail to show up for social engagements, neglect to fulfill work responsibilities, or forget to take care of tasks that are important to others. In these cases, the issue isn't necessarily a lack of ability, but rather a lack of commitment or sense of responsibility, which can make you seem unreliable to others. Being unreliable can lead to a gradual erosion of trust in your relationships. Trust is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, and when you repeatedly fail to meet expectations, it becomes difficult for others to rely on you. Whether it's a friend, family member, or colleague, repeated instances of unreliability can lead to feelings of disappointment and resentment. People may begin to question your integrity or start to doubt whether they can count on you in the future. This can result in damaged relationships, missed opportunities, and a negative reputation that can be hard to repair. To overcome struggles with reliability, it's essential to first recognize and address the underlying causes of the issue. One of the most important steps is to work on time management and organization. Creating a schedule, setting reminders, and breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps can help ensure that you stay on track and meet deadlines. By planning ahead and setting realistic expectations for yourself, you can better manage your commitments and reduce the likelihood of forgetting or neglecting important tasks. Developing better prioritization skills is also key to improving reliability. It's important to assess which tasks are most urgent or important and tackle them first. Learning how to say no to non-essential commitments and focusing on what truly matters can help you avoid becoming overwhelmed. Additionally, setting clear goals and breaking down larger projects into smaller, more achievable tasks can make it easier to stay focused and maintain momentum. Building confidence and addressing any fears or insecurities you may have is another vital aspect of becoming more reliable. By recognizing that failure is a natural part of growth and learning to embrace challenges, you can start to push past your fears and take on commitments with a sense of assurance. Developing a growth mindset where you see mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures can help you become more willing to take responsibility and follow through on your obligations. Finally, fostering a sense of accountability can help you improve your reliability. Being accountable to others, whether it's through regular check-ins or setting up a system of support, can motivate you to stay on track and fulfill your commitments. Additionally, developing a sense of personal responsibility for your actions and understanding the impact your unreliability can have on others can help you take your obligations more seriously and build a reputation as someone who can be trusted. In summary, struggling with being reliable can lead to frustration, damaged relationships, and missed opportunities. By addressing the root causes of your unreliability, such as poor time management, fear of failure, or a lack of prioritization, you can work toward becoming more dependable. Developing better organizational skills, building confidence, and holding yourself accountable can help you become a more reliable person and strengthen your relationships, both personally and professionally. Making everything a competition can create unnecessary stress, strain relationships, and prevent you from experiencing true collaboration and enjoyment in life. While a competitive spirit can sometimes drive motivation and push people to excel, when it becomes a constant way of thinking and interacting with others, it can lead to negative outcomes. This mindset turns even the most mundane activities into opportunities to prove your superiority, leaving little room for cooperation, appreciation of others, or enjoyment for its own sake. One of the primary issues with turning everything into a competition is that it can breed resentment in relationships. People enjoy healthy competition when it's balanced with mutual respect, but when you constantly make others feel like they're in direct opposition to you, it creates tension. Whether it's with friends, family, or colleagues, this mindset can make others feel like they are always in your shadow, always being compared, always expected to win. Instead of fostering teamwork, encouragement, and trust, a competitive attitude can make people feel like they have to prove themselves, which can undermine positive connections. Over time, this could lead to feelings of exhaustion, frustration, and even withdrawal, as people may avoid interacting with you for fear of being dragged into another competitive situation. Another negative aspect of constantly seeing life as a competition is the pressure it places on your own mental and emotional health. When you frame everything as a win or lose scenario, you set yourself up for disappointment whenever you don't achieve the desired outcome. The constant need to prove yourself can lead to burnout, anxiety, and a sense of inadequacy. You may feel that you can never fully relax or be yourself because you're always striving to be the best, even when the stakes are low or irrelevant. This stress can be particularly harmful in situations where the outcome doesn't even matter. For example, when playing a casual game with friends or family, or engaging in simple activities, the drive to outdo others can take away from the fun of the experience, making it feel more like a high-pressure situation than an opportunity for connection. In addition to the emotional toll, making everything a competition can limit your ability to collaborate effectively. Teamwork requires individuals to contribute their strengths, support each other, and work toward a common goal. When you view everything through the lens of competition, you may struggle to work well with others or share ideas openly, as you're more focused on outshining them than on working together. Collaboration thrives when individuals support one another, share successes, and take collective pride in achievements. Constantly trying to win or outdo others can inhibit this process, preventing you from benefiting from the skills, perspectives, and creativity that others bring to the table. Constant competition can also prevent you from appreciating others' successes. When you are always comparing yourself to those around you, it becomes difficult to genuinely celebrate other people's accomplishments. Instead of feeling happy for a friend who has achieved something, you might feel envious or threatened, thinking that their success somehow diminishes your own. This mindset not only harms your own emotional well-being, but can also erode relationships by making others feel that their achievements are being downplayed or overlooked. It creates a toxic atmosphere where joy and success become tied to rivalry rather than mutual support and encouragement. Moreover, the habit of turning everything into a competition can stifle your personal growth and self-improvement. If your focus is solely on outperforming others, it can become easy to lose sight of your own unique goals and desires. Success is often defined externally when you're constantly trying to one-up others, but true growth comes from aligning your efforts with your own values, passions, and aspirations. Focusing only on external benchmarks of success can prevent you from exploring new interests, pursuing your passions for the sake of learning, or finding fulfillment in things that are not tied to winning or being the best. Additionally, making everything a competition often leads to a lack of self-compassion. When you're always measuring your worth against others, it's easy to fall into a pattern of self-criticism, feeling that you're never good enough, no matter how much you achieve. This constant striving for perfection or superiority can diminish your self-esteem, leaving you feeling unfulfilled even when you succeed. Instead of accepting your accomplishments and failures with grace, you may focus solely on how you can improve to outpace others, neglecting the value of self-acceptance and personal satisfaction in the process. To break free from the habit of making everything a competition, it's important to shift your focus away from comparison and toward personal growth and collaboration. One key step is to learn to appreciate the successes and strengths of others without feeling threatened by them. Cultivating empathy and celebrating others' achievements helps foster positive, supportive relationships where everyone can thrive. Recognizing that success is not a limited resource, there's enough room for everyone to shine, can help you develop a more inclusive and open mindset. Another helpful approach is to focus on intrinsic motivation rather than external validation. Instead of measuring success based on how others perform, set personal goals that are aligned with your values and interests. By doing so, you'll begin to define success on your own terms rather than constantly comparing yourself to others. This approach allows you to find fulfillment in the journey itself rather than in the outcome or in outdoing someone else. Finally, learning to embrace collaboration and teamwork can help you let go of the need to compete constantly. Working with others allows you to tap into different strengths and perspectives, ultimately leading to better outcomes. It shifts the focus from individual achievement to collective success, where each member contributes to the greater good. By fostering a sense of shared accomplishment, you can shift from a competitive mindset to one that values cooperation, mutual respect, and growth. In summary, constantly making everything a competition can lead to negative emotional consequences, strain relationships, and limit personal growth. Shifting your focus from comparison to collaboration and personal growth can help you embrace a more balanced and fulfilling approach to life, where success is defined by your own values and your ability to work with and appreciate others. Being overly critical can harm relationships, create unnecessary tension, and lead to feelings of frustration, resentment, or even self-doubt in both yourself and others. Criticism is a natural part of communication, but when it becomes excessive or harsh, it can make those around you feel unappreciated, misunderstood, or attacked. Often, being overly critical stems from a desire for improvement, high expectations, or a personal tendency toward perfectionism. However, when this tendency goes unchecked, it can undermine connections and stifle positive interactions. One of the most significant consequences of being overly critical is the impact it has on your relationships. People thrive on encouragement, positive reinforcement, and support, especially when they are trying to improve or achieve goals. Constant criticism, on the other hand, can create a defensive environment where others feel like they are constantly under scrutiny. Instead of fostering a space where people feel safe to share their ideas or make mistakes, your critical nature may make them feel like they have to walk on eggshells around you. This creates distance and discomfort, as individuals may withdraw to protect themselves from further judgment. Over time, this erodes trust and can lead to breakdowns in communication, where others may become less open or avoidant. Being overly critical also diminishes your ability to see the strengths and accomplishments of others. It becomes easy to focus solely on what could be improved or what went wrong, rather than recognizing the effort, creativity, or success behind the actions of those around you. Constantly pointing out flaws can lead to missed opportunities to celebrate growth, progress, or achievement. When you become fixated on what's not working, you miss the chance to acknowledge what is working, which can lead to feelings of discouragement in others. This negative outlook can create a toxic atmosphere where people feel like nothing they do is ever good enough, no matter how hard they try. For yourself, being overly critical often leads to a negative, self-sabotaging mindset. If you tend to judge others harshly, there's a good chance you may also apply the same standard to yourself. This perfectionistic thinking can make you feel like you're never doing enough, or that your efforts are always lacking in some way. This internal criticism can be mentally exhausting and emotionally draining, leaving you feeling defeated or inadequate, even when you have achieved something worthwhile. Rather than acknowledging your successes and building on your strengths, the constant focus on shortcomings prevents you from appreciating your own growth and accomplishments. This pattern can lead to stress, anxiety, and burnout, as you feel you're never able to meet the impossible standards you've set for yourself. An overly critical mindset can also hinder your own personal growth. When you constantly focus on what's wrong or needs fixing, you may miss out on opportunities for self-compassion and self-reflection. Being critical of yourself or others without offering constructive feedback or a solution can lead to a lack of progress or even avoidance of challenges. This perfectionistic approach makes it difficult to learn from mistakes or grow, as you are more concerned with the flaws than with finding ways to improve or adapt. Furthermore, harsh criticism rarely motivates people to improve. It often demotivates them, causing them to feel like they've already failed or that their efforts aren't valued. In professional settings, being overly critical can have a detrimental impact on teamwork and morale. Criticism may sometimes be necessary for improvement, But when it's delivered in a harsh, non-constructive manner, it can damage relationships with colleagues. If you consistently focus on pointing out what's wrong without offering solutions or recognition for efforts, you risk creating a disengaged and demotivated team. People may become less willing to share their ideas or contribute to projects out of fear of judgment. This toxic environment stifles creativity, open dialogue, and growth, making it difficult for anyone to feel empowered or confident in their work. Moreover, being overly critical can create a sense of isolation for both you and others. If your feedback is consistently negative, people may begin to avoid you or feel uncomfortable being around you. They might interpret your criticism as a lack of care or support, even if that's not your intention. Over time, this can lead to strained relationships and a sense of loneliness, as others may find it hard to relate to someone who seems only focused on faults and shortcomings. Similarly, if you feel like nothing ever meets your expectations, you may isolate yourself in pursuit of perfection or self-critique, causing a disconnect from others and opportunities for growth. To overcome being overly critical, it's important to practice mindfulness and self-awareness. Recognizing when your critique is constructive and when it veers into harsh judgment is a vital first step. Striving to offer feedback in a balanced way, acknowledging what's working well and suggesting areas for improvement can help foster a more supportive environment. It's essential to shift your focus from perfection to progress, recognizing that mistakes are part of learning and growing, not something to be ashamed of or criticized endlessly. Another helpful approach is to focus on empathy. Before offering criticism, consider the feelings and perspective of the person you are addressing. Ask yourself if your words will encourage growth and improvement, or if they may unintentionally damage the person's self-esteem. Offering encouragement, support, and positive reinforcement alongside constructive criticism can create a more open, productive dialogue. In addition, practicing self-compassion is crucial. If you find yourself being overly critical of others, take a moment to reflect on how you treat yourself. Learning to be kind to yourself and acknowledging your own efforts and growth can help shift your mindset from one of judgment to one of support and encouragement. In conclusion, being overly critical can harm both your relationships and your own sense of self-worth. It fosters an environment of defensiveness, discouragement, and isolation. By practicing mindfulness, empathy, and self-compassion, you can learn to balance constructive feedback with encouragement, creating an atmosphere of support and mutual growth. Shifting from a mindset of harsh judgment to one of understanding and progress can lead to stronger relationships and a healthier, more fulfilling life. Not respecting boundaries can create serious problems in relationships, whether personal or professional. Boundaries are an essential part of healthy interactions, as they help define personal limits and protect individual needs. When these boundaries are disregarded, it can lead to discomfort, frustration, and even resentment, often creating tension and mistrust. A lack of respect for boundaries can be unintentional, but it can still result in negative consequences, making it crucial to recognize and respect the limits others set for themselves. Disrespecting boundaries often stems from an inability to recognize that everyone has different needs, limits, and comfort levels. Sometimes people overstep because they genuinely feel they're helping, being supportive, or showing interest. For instance, you might give unsolicited advice, pry into personal matters, or insist on spending time together without recognizing that others may need space. However, when you ignore cues that indicate someone wants to keep a certain distance or prefers not to discuss certain topics, it can make them feel overwhelmed, uncomfortable, or even violated. Instead of feeling close or supported, they may start to feel that their personal space or autonomy isn't being respected, which can lead to feelings of mistrust and frustration. Constantly crossing boundaries can also give others the impression that you don't value their needs or feelings. For example, if a friend asks for some alone time and you continue to call, text, or try to meet up, it might signal that their requests aren't being taken seriously. Disregarding their wishes or pushing for more interaction when they need distance can feel intrusive and selfish, even if that's not your intent. Similarly, in professional settings, failing to respect boundaries such as asking personal questions at work, pushing for tasks outside of someone's job description, or contacting them outside of work hours without prior consent can lead to discomfort, and it may even harm your reputation. In addition to creating discomfort for others, disregarding boundaries can also have negative effects on your own well-being. Constantly trying to reach beyond someone's set limits can create tension, conflict, and ultimately damage the relationship. If your actions lead to strained interactions, it can result in a sense of rejection, isolation, or frustration when people withdraw from you. Over time, not respecting boundaries can leave you feeling disconnected from others, as they may choose to distance themselves to avoid further conflict or discomfort. Additionally, when you don't respect boundaries, you might develop a tendency to place unrealistic expectations on others. By expecting people to always be available, interested, or willing to engage, you disregard their needs and set yourself up for disappointment. Recognizing that people have the right to set their own boundaries helps manage expectations and avoid misunderstandings. Over time, failing to do so can create a dynamic where you feel entitled to others' time or attention, which can lead to friction and resentment as people push back. Another consequence of not respecting boundaries is that it can lead to emotional exhaustion and burnout, both for yourself and for those around you. If you constantly require reassurance, validation, or companionship without giving people the space to recharge or take care of their own needs, it can create an imbalanced dynamic. Friends, family, or colleagues might feel drained by the constant demand on their time or emotional resources, which may lead them to pull back or set even stricter boundaries to protect their well-being. This can lead to feelings of frustration or rejection for you and may eventually erode the relationship. To overcome this tendency, it's essential to develop awareness of others' cues and preferences. One of the first steps is to actively listen to people when they communicate their needs. When someone expresses a desire for space, alone time, or privacy, it's important to honor those requests. Practicing active listening and empathy can help you understand why they need these boundaries and realize that their decisions are not a rejection of you, but a way for them to maintain their own well-being. Understanding and respecting boundaries also involves managing your own expectations. Remind yourself that others are not obligated to fulfill all your needs or to be constantly available. This requires developing a sense of self-sufficiency and finding other sources of fulfillment. Engaging in hobbies, interests, or self-care activities can help reduce the urge to rely solely on others for emotional support or companionship. This shift allows you to foster healthy interdependence, where both parties can feel secure and respected. A helpful strategy for respecting boundaries is to ask for permission rather than assuming that others are comfortable with a certain level of engagement or closeness. For instance, if you want to discuss something personal or sensitive, asking, "Are you open to talking about this?" gives the other person the chance to decide. By giving them control over the situation, you show that you respect their limits and autonomy. Similarly, when interacting with colleagues or acquaintances, respecting their work-life balance and privacy demonstrates consideration for their personal boundaries, helping to build mutual respect. Learning to respect boundaries also means becoming more comfortable with hearing no without taking it personally. Understand that a no or a request for distance is not necessarily a rejection, but a reflection of the other person's needs and limits. When you view boundaries as a positive tool for maintaining relationships, you can start to see them as a form of respect rather than a barrier. In summary, failing to respect boundaries can damage relationships, lead to emotional exhaustion, and create a cycle of frustration and withdrawal. By practicing active listening, managing your expectations, and honoring others' cues and requests, you can foster more respectful and balanced interactions. Learning to respect boundaries helps build stronger connections and creates an environment where both parties feel valued, secure, and understood.